Hi, I'm Sarah. I've been asked to tell you a few things about VR. That's short for Vocational Rehabilitation. They tell me I'm a star graduate of the program. I don't know about that, but what I do know is that VR has made a big difference in my life. I have a spinal cord injury and bipolar disorder, and at times I have trouble communicating and working with people, which has cost me several jobs. I really wanted to work full-time and become independent, but it turned out to be a lot more difficult than I thought it would. Then a friend told me to give VR a call, and that was the best thing I could have done for myself. After getting a little more information about the program, I attended the orientation at my local VR office and learned how VR could help me become employed. They were so caring and understanding. At first, I didn't know what I wanted to do or even what I would be good at. So my VR counselor and I found a job that matched my abilities, interests, and needs. Now, after training and some blood, sweat, and tears, I have a new career. Meet Sarah Johnson, Library Administrative Assistant. I check out books and reshelve them when they're returned. I've been able to get my own apartment, and I'm supporting myself. Am I happy? You bet, thanks to VR. They go to work for you so you can go to work. VR is one of the state's best kept secrets. It's a rehabilitation program with the goal of employment for people with disabilities. They help you qualify for and find suitable employment. It's a voluntary, individualized, and time-limited program. They only work with you as long as you need them to find a job. To qualify for rehab services, you must have a physical or mental disability that's diagnosed by a doctor, psychologist, or licensed professional. In my case, I was evaluated by several specialists. Actually, I had been seeing them for some time and just needed to provide my recent records to my counselor. Your disability must prevent you from getting or keeping a job, and you must require VR services. Once you qualify for services, a series of steps lead to employment. First, the services provided to reach employment are individualized. What works for someone else may not work for you. Second, the services must be jointly developed and agreed upon by you and your counselor. In other words, it's a cooperative effort. VR calls this informed choice. And third, services are time limited. Your rehabilitation plan is designed with a specific goal in mind, securing employment. After you apply for VR services, your counselor has 60 days to gather the necessary information and determine your eligibility. I've asked my VR counselor, John, to help me explain how it all works. During your first meeting, that's where, as they say, the rubber meets the road. A lot goes on during that meeting, so it's best to come prepared.
Yes, you undergo a comprehensive assessment as your VR counselor gathers as much information as possible about your work history, education and training, abilities and interests, rehabilitation needs, and possible career goals.
You might be asked all kinds of questions, such as, what do you expect from VR, and how can you work with your counselor to find the best vocational goal?
If existing information is not enough to determine whether you are eligible for services, VR will provide assessment services to determine the exact nature of your disability and how it might affect your employment possibilities. For example, you might be sent to a physical therapist who will test your physical ability to lift, bend, twist, or carry.
Or you might be interviewed by a psychologist or another specialist like I was. Your VR counselor may set up and pay for these assessments if they're not available through your personal insurance.
Be sure to bring any information regarding your disability to your first VR appointment. Things like medical records that list the names of doctors or therapists you have seen, along with dates and a list of medications you are taking.
Since VR does not have enough money to provide services for everyone who's eligible, they've implemented an order of selection. Everyone who's determined eligible for services is placed on a waiting list until the funds become available to offer those services.
Following federal law, VR will serve people with the most significant disabilities first, and others will be served as money becomes available. To be considered a person with the most significant disability, you must be seriously limited in how you can function at work. These limitations can include mobility, self-care, communication, self-direction, interpersonal skills, work tolerance, and work skills. And you must require 3 or more services that will last at least a year.
VR will also look at your income to determine if you will be required to share in the cost of VR services. Some individuals or services may be exempt, and a person will not have to pay. I was required to pay 10%?
Yes.
Towards the cost of my services.
If you are determined not eligible for the VR program, your case is closed, and you may be directed to other resources such as a one-stop career center or centers for independent living or any number of community services.
Once you've applied, been determined eligible for services, and are activated from the waiting list, you and your counselor will look at possible career choices. John helped me develop my Individualized Plan for Employment, or IPE, something I fondly call my roadmap to success. The plan includes your specific job goal and when you expect to reach it.
It includes a list of the services needed to reach your job goal, who the service providers will be, starting and projected end dates, and funding arrangements for the services. This includes services and benefits from programs or sources other than VR that will help you reach your goal.
The IPE also outlines the tasks and responsibilities you need to complete. After all, it's a two-way street. My plan said I was responsible for finishing my required coursework with a C or better, among other things. You need to be committed to the program and fulfill your obligations as listed on your IPE. You also need to cooperate and actively participate, making every effort to seek additional funding sources for your rehabilitation.
Finally, you need to communicate. Good communication with your counselor is a must. Follow through with your appointments and responsibilities, and your VR experience will go smoothly.
You have rights too. Everything is kept confidential. VR must get your permission to request or release medical or other records. VR will not discriminate. And remember, you have a right to appeal if you disagree with the decision.
Finally, your individualized plan for employment includes what part of the services you would pay for, if any. Before providing certain services, your VR counselor will see if other sources, such as medical insurance or Medicaid, will pay for the service. There are certain services that are available to all eligible individuals, regardless of financial resources, so you want to ask about those.
When you're ready for employment, your VR counselor will help you find a job. John helped me write my resume, and he worked with me on how to interview so I would be more comfortable when it came time for the real thing. It went something like this.
Hello, I'm John Williams.
I'm Sarah Johnson. Thank you for seeing me today.
Okay, well, I'd like to start our interview by asking, why do you want to work in a library, Sarah?
I've always loved reading, and the library was one of my favorite places to go and learn about different cultures and research different subjects.
Okay, well, that's great. Your resume shows that you've had computer and data systems training. You want to tell me a little bit?
There you go. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
The last phase in your employment plan is getting a job in your chosen field. After 90 days of satisfactory employment, you're considered successfully employed and your case is closed. Oh, if you need VR services to maintain your employment, you may be eligible for post-employment services. That's me, successfully employed. I was so excited when my case was finally closed and I'd achieved my goal, working at a job I love. That's a little bit about the VR process. Always feel free to ask your counselor questions about anything. And remember, having a disability does not mean you lack abilities. VR is there to help put those abilities to work for you.